What's up, Saviors? GH here, and welcome back to another Tea of Savior video. And as you see in the title, we're going to explore a new and shiny build I call Wizard of Darkness build, which consists of mysterious and dark class names such as Shadowmancer, Warlock, and Featherfoot. What? How am I supposed to say it? Anyways, you guys know the drill. Show the classes, how it works, good and the bad, and some closing remark to finish up the video. And with that said, here is the Wizard of Darkness build. Let's do this. Okay, here's the build. We got Shadowmancer, Warlock, and Featherfoot. Let's start with Featherfoot. Now, Featherfoot is a class that uses blood absorption spells to recover HP, and with the recent changes, a Featherfoot is now also a class you pick if you want to increase dark damage. And that's the reason Featherfoot is here, to provide a much needed self-sustain and a boost in dark damage with the use of its skills. First off is Levitation. This spell makes you fly, and there's an attribute for this that gives you additional 40% dark damage when Levitation is active. Obviously, take it. When you have that attribute on, Levitation is kinda like Barbarian's Frenzy or Corsair's Brutality, but only for dark elemental spells. There's also another attribute that increases the duration, but in exchange, you lose your melee immunity. Next spell is Blood Curse. This spell is only usable when levitating, and it's an AoE attack around you that marks a target with Cursed by Blood, which gives you and your teammates the ability to lifesteal. You can mark a target with Cursed by Blood almost indefinitely, because now, levitation's duration is longer. Just be careful in using this because in exchange for a strong attack, you will lose a percentage of your HP. Another spell is Blood Sucking. It's a spell that deals damage to enemies and heals you at the same time, assuming the target is a beast, devil, or insect type, or if they have curse or hexing debuff, which can be done by using Bone Pointing. Now, Bone Pointing is a summon that attacks and debuffs enemies with hexing debuff. Use this to enable Blood Sucking on all targets. Now, there's another skill that you can use to debuff enemies with hexing, and it's called Nardhundi. And it's an attack that deals damage and inflicts corruption. Now, where's the hexing, you ask? You need to enable it by getting the hexing attribute. And that's mostly what you're gonna need for a Featherfoot. Now let's head on to Shadowmancer. Now, Shadowmancers are wizards that control shadows to their advantage, and the reason it's here is because all offensive Shadowmancer spells are of the dark element, meaning you can benefit from Featherfoot's 40% increased dark elemental damage. And those dark elemental spells are as follows. First is Shadow Condensation. It's an attack that draws shadows from your team and enemies and use those shadows to attack. It's a strong attack assuming you can make 5 shadows hit. Second spell is Shadow Conjuration. It deals damage and generates 1 stack of Shadow Absorption. Now, Shadow Absorption is basically a buff that can reach 20 stacks. And when it reaches 20, it changes how Shadow Condensation works. And instead of drawing shadows, at 20 stacks, it now uses a Dark Energy Ball that can hit a wide area and deal massive damage. Another spell that can stack Shadow Absorption is Shadow Thorn. This spell deals damage and generates 2 stacks of Shadow Absorption, and you can use Shadow Thorn 4 times, which equates to 8 stacks. Now, there's a way to generate Shadow Absorption faster, and it's with the use of Shadow Fetter. Now, Shadow Fetter is a spell that immobilizes enemies, and while they are immobilized, all Shadow Absorption applied is doubled. And to generate 20 stacks, you need Infernal Shadow on the boss, then cast Shadow Fetter on both of them, then hit them with Shadow Conjuration. That will generate 4 stacks, then spam Shadow Thorn for an additional 16 stacks. And what else? There's Infernal Shadow that can generate more damage for you by inflicting damage to enemy shadows. Then there's Hallucination. It's basically a shadow clone of you that takes damage for you. This is a pretty good spell. Speaking of good spells, the last one is Shadow Pool. It's an iframe, it makes you immune to damage. Here is a good example. There's Mistrus, he's going to one-shot me, and with the use of Shadow Pool, I can avoid getting one shot. And that's Shadowmancer, an extremely useful class for increasing damage output and survivability. And now for the last class, Warlock. Now, Warlocks are wizards who harness the power of evil spirits. They can summon evil spirits and command them to defeat monsters. And the reason this class is here is much like Shadowmancer. All Warlocks attacks are of the dark element, which can benefit from Featherfoot's levitation dark damage increase. Now let's look at the spells. First off is Invocation. This is how a Warlock summon evil spirits periodically. You can make spirits attack with the use of evil sacrifice. And there's an attribute for Invocation that can make enemies hit by evil spirits inflicted by blind. This is very important because most of your spells in this build gets increased damage from blinded enemies. And if you're interested in increasing damage against blinded enemies, make sure to check out the Mercenary Shop if this card is available, because 3 pieces of this card increases damage against blinded enemies by 30%. Next Warlock spell is Ghastly Trail. This makes spirits follow you and gives you a 100% damage increase of spirit damage, so make sure to use this before commanding spirits to attack. Next spell is Pole of Agony. This is a magic circle attack that deals damage continuously for about 7 seconds. And there's an art for this that gives it an additional effect, which makes it summon evil spirits every half a second. And by the way, you can only summon 10 spirits at a time. Next spell is linked to the art of Pole of Agony, and it's called Mastema. This is one of your strongest dark elemental attack, probably second to 20 stacks of Shadow Condensation, and Mastema is an area attack that deals damage and inflicts Stigma debuff. And what Stigma debuff does is attract evil spirits, therefore making all spirits around the stigmatized enemy gets automatically attacked by spirits. It's pretty awesome. And that's Warlock, a pretty good addition to this Wizard of Darkness build. One might argue that this could be the centerpiece of this build. And that's the build. Now let's do the good and the bad. Let's start with the bad. This build kinda sucks for mobbing. Not totally, it's serviceable, but nothing compared to the meta. And I guess some Shadowmancer attacks still feels kinda like a filler spell. Those spells only got redeemed because of the Shadow Absorption mechanic, which provided another problem, which is stacking 20 stacks of Shadow Absorption, which is annoying and could have been eliminated. And in my opinion, it's not really gonna be that OP if they made the stacking of Shadow Absorption easier. And that's the bad. Now let's do the good stuff. First off, this build is awesome for boss fighting. I think this could be one of the best in the Wizard class builds. Then, survivability is second to none. You got heals that helps not just you and also your teammates. And you also have a very reliable iframe or invincibility spell that lasts quite a bit. And to top it all off, you got a build that has a lot of synergies. And that's what you want from a build. Classes that works together to bring forth a very viable and fun build to play with. All in all, this build is showing up to be a decent alternative to the meta. And I most definitely recommend any Wizard mains to try this out. And that's it guys, what do you think? Are you planning to dump LA, Tao, Pyro? Or are you still staying same? Share your thoughts in the comment section down below. And if you liked the video, hit the thumbs up, share, and then subscribe to be part of the Gaming Hardcore family. And as always, this is Gaming Hardcore. See you in the next one.